What's up? I'm back. Today I'm going to talk about the concept of thinking globally and acting locally. This is very important because I can tell, well, first off, I can say this is very important because I can tell very few people do this. And what I mean by thinking globally and acting locally is you understanding that we live in a global world, globalized world. You may think the actions, what's going on in another country, don't affect you, but you're sadly mistaken, right? And in reality, there's no more countries. We are one nation now, to be honest, right? There's probably different corporations, right? I could say if you want to divide the world up into corporations, you could do that, but countries is a myth. And people have said it before. People have said it before, and most of the time, the only people who tend to understand it tend to be people in the upper classes. Unfortunately, either tend to be people in the upper classes or the intellectuals, which obviously you could have intellectuals in the lower classes, right? That isn't intellectualism. In fact, sometimes in the higher classes you get intellectuals, but you get people who just went to school and they just recite what they've been taught, but they're not critical thinkers. I could say pound for pound, you probably have more critical thinkers in the lower classes, believe it or not. But for the most part, people, the critical thinkers or the slash intellectuals, and the people in the higher classes tend to know that. So a lot of times when you go into the lower middle classes, they don't understand it, and because they don't understand it, they pay the price for it. When the world is globalized, it's one nation now. It's very dangerous because information is power, and they say information is really what moves the world at this point. And information is moving so fast. A lot of people use outdated models when they're you know addressing their spirituality, addressing their lifestyle choices, addressing even their political consciousness. They use a lot of outdated choices, outdated models. I should say, because they have outdated models, they're using outdated models. Their choices tend to be outdated, right? Where people don't really understand that in this world right now, you not only have to be able to keep up with information, you have to be able to be, in a sense, ahead of everyone else. And because this is because the physical world is competition, and unfortunately, this doesn't get translated as much. And I think this is with everything. You could Let's take something simple. Let's take politics, right? Let's even take politics. Let's take politics. Let's take music, right? And you say, all right, America. I can tell you from living both in the East and the West Coast and spending a lot of time down south. The only place in America I haven't really spent time in, I've been to Chicago, Indiana, and Minnesota. I've been to them, but I haven't spent an extended period of time in the Midwest. The only place in America I can say I haven't spent extended time in. The crazy part of it is that even in America, you go to 4 different regions, and they're like 4 different places. The mindset is different. Everything is different, to be honest, right? Where in a lot of ways, you could take simple examples like, let's say, Latinos. You say East Coast, people not politically correct, they think every Latino is Puerto Rican. Maybe Dominican coming up now if you're a little brown skin, right? You take that same person, let's go to Midwest, West Coast, right? You're going to say every Latino is Mexican. You go to Florida, probably say Cubano or Cuban. You're like, wow, right? And the crazy part of it is, being that all of them are different, the culture of Mexicans can be vastly different than the culture of a Caribbean Latino. Only similarities, they speak Spanish, right? But let's say someone not outside the culture would approach them and like, oh, all Mexicans, when they talk about all Latinos do this, or Cubans or Puerto Ricans, when they talk about Latinos do this. And, so for instance, right, in the West Coast, blacks and Mexicans don't get along as much, right? East Coast, Puerto Ricans and blacks get along for the most part, right? They live together, right? So you hear them say nigga, no one on the East Coast will really flinch. Take that same concept down south, people may not like it, right? Some people down south may think that some Puerto Ricans look Caucasian, right? This is not saying people down south are dumb. It's just the saying that we live in, this is one nation, but it's different consciousness within the nation, to be honest. There's different regional consciousness. And the different regional consciousness is going to affect how somebody approaches the world, to be honest. So for most people, even in California and New York, when you go to politics, most people in California and New York don't really understand the heart of America is the South. They don't want to admit it. But I tell people all the time, New York, listen, New York is like Europe in that sense. It's like an island off Europe. It's liberal. And I'm not saying liberalism for good. So when you hear liberal, don't think I'm saying that liberals are cool. I don't get into liberal conservative stuff. I'm in between. I'm independent. So I have problems with both. But I'll never forget when George Bush won, right? And I was working in the Metropolitan Museum at the time. And a person came from Europe and was like, I can't believe you guys voted for George Bush. And I told the person, I said, listen, in New York, we ain't getting nowhere vote for George Bush, but you go down south, it's going to be a different story. You go to the Midwest, it's going to be a different story. Why? Because that's the heart of America. Kansas, that Midwest, down south, Texas, Alabama, that's the heart of America. Midwest and the South, no question about it. I'll say the South over the Midwest, but the Midwest comes close, right? Why? Because in a sense, especially when you talk about the South, this is where, when you look at the military, when you look at even the fact that down south, you would have a quicker, they get into that Yankee, northerner, southerner stuff. In the North or the East Coast, they may have stereotypes that people from the South are slow, right? But in the South, person may not vote for you because you're not a southerner. Like, and that's, they hold that like it's a new nationality, to be honest. That's like a nationality to them, in a sense. And a lot of ways sometimes, and this is not into good and bad. This is within America. This is within the same country. People don't understand that. So what you could get away with in the West Coast, you may not be able to get away with in the East Coast or down south or Midwest, right? I mean, look, Hawaii and Alaska are part of America. Do Americans really know what's going on in Alaska and Hawaii? Like when I say what's going on, I'm talking about, do they know? Like Alaska and Hawaii is a vastly different culture, vastly different. Alaska's cold, but Alaska's really cool. Alaska's cool. Like, I mean, it's culturally, Alaskans are pretty cool, to be honest. Does the average American really know what's going on? Or not what's going on in terms of politically, but how life in Alaska is different? Probably not. See, when you get to a smaller country, like an island, like let's say Jamaica, whatever island, Trinidad, right? It's an island. So even though you have different, even in islands, you have different cities, and then they might have different, slightly different subcultures, no question. But when you get something as big as America, you have a vastly different subculture, all depending on the regions. Now, this is important because when I say think globally and act locally, this is an important concept because I don't think people do that, to be honest. I could talk to, at the end of the day, I could talk to someone from the East Coast. And do most people in the East Coast know the difference between Philly, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island? Not really. They say I'm from the East Coast, like themselves, they're from the East Coast, but they don't even know the East Coast. I've been living in California for the last 4 or 5 years. Do I think that people in LA know what's going, how the mindset is, and people in Washington? Probably not. Oregon, they don't think about that. Doesn't come in their mind. When they say West Coast, they talk about California. And I think, in a sense, it's a problem because you're talking about this is within the same country, let alone when you start talking about globally. And I think the fact that somebody would say, "Oh, all Asian people are Chinese, all Mexican people, all Hispanic people are Mexican, all, everyone's black," right? Not taking into nationality. I think it's a problem because culture and regions affect people's mindset. They affect how people see the world. And because they affect how people see the world, if you don't know about that person, you might judge them differently. You might handle them in ways that you probably shouldn't handle them. That if you just knew about them, you would have a different way of going about things. And a lot of times, this is the reason why people don't understand the global power structure, because the global power structure is global. Right? It's global, obviously, but they act locally. Meaning, if you connect. Like, let's say America, Israel, Europe join together to run the world. Obviously, you see America in everyone's country, right? But they obviously still pay attention to what's going on their own shores. Now, when you take the next step and you take the people who claiming to want to fight the system, how could you fight the system if you don't understand it from a global level? I don't understand that. In the end of the day, when I hear people's critiques of the system, whether it's dealing with racism, whether it's dealing with anything really, genderism, classism, the current state of academia, education, it comes off flawed because they are looking at it from only a fragmented perception. They take a position and they don't understand that what you're critiquing, you have to put it, you have to judge it by the global system, to be honest, and then see how that global system transforms for your local environment. This is true to even spirituality. How many people take spiritual systems from other cultures and don't understand the cultures? I always tell people, listen, every spiritual system that you talk about, the culture impacts it. If you don't understand the culture, you're not going to be able to understand the spirituality, and the spiritual system is not going to work for you. This is why so many times most people who are not spiritual are very skeptical of spirituality, because they see people doing stuff for 5, 10, 15 years and don't change. Why they don't change? Because it's an energy. They don't understand the culture that gave birth to the spirituality, that to the particular spiritual system that you're dealing with. You will not understand the system. Point blank, you will not understand the system. And so many people don't understand that. And the only reason why I say that is because I love cultures, and it shocks me and horrifies me how people don't even care about culture, to be honest. They don't care about it at all. They just make blanket statements about nationality and culture, and they just run with it, to be honest. And I think that's a major problem. And I'm saying that because I understand, like, to really understand the system, how to protect yourself from it, you have to look at it on a global level. You'd be surprised how you can look at things globally, and then you can tell if you study, right? If you study how your local politics are, you can tell, you can almost gauge when certain things will come to your area just by looking at it globally, to be honest. It's very hard to understand it, but just think of it like this. If about 3 years ago people were scared of the recession hitting Southern Europe, right? And they said, listen, if Greece and Spain fall, we could probably survive it, but if Italy fell, it would wreck our system, right? Gladly, none of that stuff happened. But that's actually looking at things from an international level, because most people, anyone in business will understand what I'm talking about. You understand that business-wise, we live in an environment where the Western nations, particularly, are all unified, right? The economies of the Western nation all depend on each other. And Greece and Spain are probably small enough, even though Spain's borderline, that we can survive it. But if Italy would have fell, it would have had a domino effect that would hit us. And anyone in business would understand that. But the average person in the street would have no idea what I'm talking about. So the average person in the street would not know how to protect themselves. Just like the average person who's talking about crystals and chakras, especially chakras. How many people take Indian and Buddhist concepts and don't understand the Asian mind? I think 90% of people. Then are you shocked when 90% of people who do those spiritual systems don't have any change? Nothing happens. They think of it in their mind like a placebo effect. When people outside are looking at them, they don't see it. And this is why I always tell people: if you're doing real spiritual, if you're really doing a real authentic spiritual program, other people will see changes in your personality, because that's what spirituality is supposed to do anyway. It's supposed to change your personality for the better. If it doesn't, you're doing something wrong. And I think that's why we mess up, because even when you talk about health and diet, right, you're supposed to eat food from your local environment. So when you're eating, certain things, like if you live in, let's say, Alaska, and you're eating mangoes, it's cool, but that food is not from your local environment. You will have problems eventually, right? That's what people don't really realize. Like this, thinking globally and acting locally applies on all levels. Whether you're talking about diet, whether you're talking about spirituality, whether you're talking about your everyday life, to be honest. How many people talk about how big hip-hop is? When KRS-One said it, and he said it brilliantly, so much hip-hoppers wouldn't even know this, that hip-hop, when you talk about how hip-hop got respected, the only reason why the establishment here, right, had to bow down to hip-hop in certain ways was because Europe bowed down to hip-hop before America did. Obviously hip-hop was created here, but the governments, the establishment in Europe, they bowed down to hip-hop much quicker, to be honest. And that forced certain powers here to have to say, damn, okay, maybe there's some truth to it. It is big. And everyone who's enjoying hip-hop won't even know that, to be honest. That's what I'm talking about, in a sense. When you don't think globally, act locally, you can never compete or never survive against an establishment that's, I guess, in some ways wrecking your life. To be honest, make no bones about it. Wall Street, they think globally, right? And they obviously act locally. If you can't do that, you can't compete. And this is what it doesn't matter if you're trying to do spiritual, if you're into spirituality, if you're into social, social topics. It could be education. How many people? Wow, you go to India, or you don't have to go. You look at you say, wow, they have a different type of mathematics. I could actually use this. Like, wow, they do math differently. Ancient Indians did math differently, and maybe I could apply those techniques to my life now. And all of a sudden, you were scared of math. Math becomes easy. That's thinking globally. That's taking a global concept or something that someone else did globally, taking it and applying it to your life and seeing how you could change it up, because you still have to fuse it with your local environment, but you can see how you can do that, if that makes any sense. And I don't think people understand that concept. And I think that's why. So when a lot of people tell me, why don't you make spiritual videos? Why are you trying to get more grounded? I look at this current spiritual, climate, and it horrifies me, to be honest. It comes off so space cadetish because I don't think people understand that, in a sense, spirituality is not escapism. Spirituality is supposed to help you look at the world, look at the physical world. That's why you're here. Learn it, master it, then move to the next stage. It's not about running. And I think a lot of people sometimes don't understand that in order to really do that, you have to look at it based on where you live, when you live. You live in the 21st century. The world is globalized. It's globalized for a reason. In ancient days, you had to take a ship months to get, let's say from America to Europe. Now, 8 hours, you're there, right? You don't have to go there physically. You could go punch up on the internet. You could look at what's going on in London and France every day. I actually look at French news every day. I don't have to go to Paris. That is actually what you have to realize, that you have to look at the circumstances. The world is globalized. There's some spiritual connotation to that, meaning there's some spiritual meaning behind all that, where in the ancient days, maybe that wasn't the case. But that won't happen by itself. Even good things or bad, even bad things or good things are all under the direction of the one force. And there's some things happening, you're supposed to learn from it. So this could be health, right? This could be politics. This could be spirituality. Think globally, act locally. Till next time. Peace.